If you're just joining us, it's still your weekend, and we've been having a blast on the show. You've met our first guest. We are talking about World Food Safety Day, which took place on the 7th of June. It was celebrated worldwide, and that's our focus on your weekend today. And it's time to meet our second guest. She's not a stranger on the show. We've had her on the show before. Her name is Rosevalene Obia. She's a nutritionist, a dietitian. She's also of Rosie Creative Minds Medical Center. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me again.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
All right. So, how has it been so far since the last time we saw you?
Some people say Nigeria happened to us, but this time I think we are doing amazingly well as
Awesome.
Nigeria. So God has been faithful.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, I know you've been quite busy, and we have celebrated, or the world celebrated World Food Safety Day on the 7th of June.
Okay.
And I know you're a scientist, food scientist, you've got nutritionist, dietitian, so everything about food safety and management and preservation, it's what you do. So what are some of the main factors that contribute to food contamination, and how can we address them or avoid them?
Okay. First thing to note is, what is food contamination? When you talk about food contamination, at what point? Food contamination is simply an unhealthy, unsafe, and harmful meal or food, caused by, firstly, the people who are presented with this food and inadequate knowledge of nutrition. So when you drop down to the inadequate knowledge of nutrition, it boils down to the factors that contribute to this food contamination, which are the food hygiene. That's one key factor where we're having a lot of people who have issues with keeping this food safe. Measures that have exposed our food, measures that have exposed them to toxins, bacteria, parasites, fungi, name them. It also results to how we, methods we also use for our foods, how we process them, how we distribute them, as many of. Then you tilt down to our personal hygienes now. It deals with the food handlers themselves. So many food handlers, we're having a lot of challenges with having trained handlers. Some have privileged themselves to train themselves with digitalization online. But training online, it's one out of 10 than understanding what having a personal hygiene etiquette is.
Okay.
So that has also led to a lot of food contamination. Then we talk about kitchen sanitization. It's another sanitation is another one that has become an issue as well.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we find out that from the part of when these food are produced by the farmers, to the part of processing them, to the part of preserving them, to the part of packaging, and when they are being distributed and down to the consumption, there is a huge lapses, and these huge lapses now result to food contamination. Yes.
Wow. All right. So what are some of the common myths surrounding food safety and proper nutrition?
Anyway, the first one is, when you talk about nutrition, the first thing people have in thought is nutrition is an expensive thing to go about. People say expensive. It's a myth. Why do I call it a myth? It's a myth because nutrition has to do with food. So if you should say food is expensive to achieve, that means you have not been eating for a long time.
Yeah.
That's for one who has access to food, which I know we all have access to food. Either you're having access to the plant origin of food or the animal origin of food, you should be able to understand what this food gives to you. What's your purpose of consuming food?
Yeah.
And when you understand your purpose of consuming food, it makes you, kind to correct what you do with that particular food, because it's your own tool now that God has given you. Now, aside that, the aspect of knowing that you don't have to look at someone else's food in order to live healthy. you will know that if I have rice, what can I make out of my rice? That is what I can afford. Now you can cook rice in 5 or 6, in fact millions of ways. Thank God for our caterers now who perform magic with our food. Rice and beans, jollof rice, coconut,
Swallow.
father rice, name it. So we are all tilting towards that rice. Now it's no longer expensive. Then for the low income earners who are unable to source the protein source type like meat, chicken, we have our prawn, that's we have the crayfish, we have the shrimps, we have the periwinkle, we have as many of these seafoods that we can garner and put in our meals and become healthy. Another myth that is associated with food is this one that has to do with hygiene. They said they think no they kill African man. That myth has got. I'm looking at it. They say no they kill African man.
Like
So
seriously.
you're going to the hospitals and you're wondering, people that are attending these sessions, are they foreigners or are they aliens? They are African people.
Yeah.
Now it has made an African man so relaxed with what he does. You know, our hygiene in this part of the world is interesting. Thank God for, I keep referring to COVID era when people were conscious of hand washing.
Yeah.
How many times do you wash your hands? Even some people, if they can insert sanitizers in their hand and keep, they will do that. So that's another one. So let us curtail that notion, because that notion has made a lot of people not to be conscious of their health and not to know when they are tilting towards being deficient of a nutrient or the other. Then the last of the myth is one that has made me laugh. It's one thing that is channeled towards the men a lot. The men will tell you something must kill a man. Now, something must kill a man. Especially when you want to tell a man to stop drinking, he tell you something must kill a man. Now, I had a friend yesterday I met, and he said he has stopped consuming alcohol. I said, what happened? Why? What happened to the bottles? How did you throw it? He said, that he has been seeing a lot of things that have been happening to people that are, alcoholics and all of that. I said, so you have to see to believe. So that aspect of something must kill a man has exposed our food. Because you're correcting them now, you're telling somebody now that if you take so much of these artificial seasonings and add them to your meal, it's going to expose your health. You have the NCDs, the hypertension, the diabetes. The person says it's not true. If I add this artificial seasonings to my food, I want the next neighbor to know that it's smelling. I want them to understand the scent that come out of it, the aroma.
Yeah.
So that is also a challenge. So if we can correct some of these myths attached to our food, we'll achieve a good food.
Okay. So how can people make informed food choices without compromising their health?
In doing that is to understand firstly what is adequate nutrition. If you're able to understand what nutrition is and the principles guiding nutrition, you can make an informed choice. Because when someone is unable to understand that, adequate nutrition is a diet that combines the micro and the macro. Now the macro is you have the carbohydrate, protein and the fat. The micro is the vitamins, minerals. Then water is another a very essential nutrient. Now in understanding this, you now realize that if I should take carbohydrate, fats and protein, I'm getting my major source of nutrients from them, and they are the energy givers. They are supplying my body with this particular nutrient. Then if I should consume, though they are in the smaller amounts, that is the vitamins, minerals, they are also helping to play their own role of protecting the immune system. They strengthen the immune system. Now, when you understood that, you now start tilting towards what are the principles of nutrition. Now you get to understand that, this particular is having grouped. They have been grouped based on their nutritional compositions. You go to your food groups and you select them accordingly. This is where you have the cereals group, meal group, legume group, meat group. Understand where to combine them in your meals. Now when you have done that, you now start correcting some of the habits that you kind of grow. Of course, the general one we know we do a lot with the skipping meals, eating excess, late eating, binging, those emotionally driven way of eating. When we correct that accordingly, we find out that we are beginning to make healthy food choices. We're beginning to get it right when it comes to our nutrition. We're beginning to, reduce the excess of saying people are going, we have the prevalence of this, the prevalence of that, are getting towards a healthy society.
All right. My director is already giving me signs that we should round up. But I just want to ask this last question.
Go
My
ahead,
director should forgive me, please.
Okay, go ahead,
How can we raise awareness about food safety and the importance of proper nutrition among the public?
The first is to meet with the first supply chain members, who are the farmers.
Okay.
Now the farmers, now it's a bit worrisome that we have little or no interest when it comes to agriculture because of the insecurity. So people are not going to the farms anymore. But then, in as much as we have a fewer people, indicating interest to go to the farms, we now said, okay, let's bring the farms to our homes. Now that's where the thought of the home gardening came in. Now the home gardening is something that we encourage everyone to do. Try not to throw away your containers, your leathers. Try to make something in your little small space. By the time you start growing these things yourself, you'll be able to nurture them from their seeds to when they sprout as fruits for consumption. Down towards those who process this food, the processors now. And when you talk about the processors, talk about the food industries. How do they, manufacture this food that they produce? Do they apply, the HACCP, which is the Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point, to detect for possible dangers that could be attached to this food? Do they, analyze this food accordingly? Are they following the labels right? Sometimes some of them want to easily bring out labels. People have seen labels after all. They've seen carbohydrate is this. Let's eat it is safe.
Is that what is really
in the food? What is really in the food?
Yeah.
Now, and do they also meet, look for professionals to, and advise them aright? A lot of them don't even work hand in hand with such. Then you tilt towards the distributors, the business vendors now. The business operators, there are a lot of things they do in the market. American wonders, a lot of fraud. I have watched somebody use a liquid detergent to wash melon seeds.
Oh, wow.
A lot of hail. Now, I watched that and the person wanted to make that, he wants to show the next person. You're talking about what they add to the vegetables.
Wow.
If you start looking at things that happen in the market, you won't want to even go to the market. But we always patronize them.
Yeah.
So we need to tell them to help us and let's help them by selling out. Now this has been processed and given to them. Let them sell out what they've been given so that it becomes a good thing to our health. Then we tilt towards.
Well, I wish we are running out of time, but just quickly, round up.
Okay, finally, the consumers themselves. Before you consume a meal, ensure that you have adequately presented that meal healthy for yourself. From the production, from the part of preparation, cook right. Try to learn how to ensure that when you cook, separate the raws from and make sure that the raws are cooked thoroughly. Your utensils should be in order. Chill accordingly, according to the 5 listen of the WHO. Chill accordingly and separate your foods. Do not always you're washing raw. You want to save the water at the same time so that the borehole will not finish. I think I'll stop here for that.
Well, we actually need to learn, so that we eat healthy and stay healthy.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Rosevalene, for coming on the show. It's good to have you back again. And I'm sure we'll call you back again when we need to talk more about nutrition and diets. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. And your weekend will continue after this timeout.